Okay, so something we have learned is that if AEW has their back against the wall and they're dealing with a controversial situation, they have to put on a pay-per-view within 7 days. Because every time this happens, we get absolute gold. Also, hello my friends, I am Simon Miller, who does weird things with their hands, and welcome to Ups and Downs, the wrestling review show, which is the best wrestling review show on the planet. That's right, you may have a wrestling review show, but it's not better than mine. I don't mean any of that. I don't even know why I said it. It's not true, I do. It's because I've not slept for 3 days, because there's been so much wrestling on TV. I'm like an old man, but I'm still pumped. So I'm taking my finger of power, which is not a euphemism. I'm giving you the bits and up, and the bare bits are down. That was gibberish. Another new thing we do seem to be doing on these pay-per-views too is just saying, hey, MJF and Adam Cole, why don't you go out there and just be a fantastic tag team? And of course, on this night, they were also the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. I love it. They're also taking on the Dark Order, which was John Silver and Alex Reynolds. So many people are like, oh man, can't believe this has happened. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you talking about? They won a Battle Royal on Rampage, so it makes all the sense. You have to like it, and you can look at it and go, this isn't for me. But you can't say they just made it up. How do you think it happened? Osmosis? No. Max and Cole were also wearing Chicago Bulls attire, so they knew what they were doing. And I just love the fact that they're still friends. Like, everybody and their dog thought we'd get to All Out, and they would be enemies now, but they're just the best of pals. Which means when they do break up, I'm probably going to cry. The crowd also was just desperate to see the kangaroo kick and the double clothesline, so let's not pretend that anything has actually changed in wrestling. And seriously, while they did do some good old grappling to begin with, most of the crowd was like, nope, nope, we want to see the goofy stuff. Goofy wrestling for life. Alex Reynolds knew this too, and he actually saved John Silver for taking these moves. And after MJF had run around saying sportsmanship, sportsmanship, he saw Alex, who was his trainer, and he went boop, and he poked him right in the eye. And I started laughing, because this version of Friedman, it's like the best of the babyface and the best of the heel. Oh, I think we should change it. Now, there was a subplot here as well, because of course, in the All-In main event, that's right, we're crossing the streams, MJF had hurt his neck, so at one point, the Dark Order started to work that over, and when the referee wasn't looking, Reynolds got a chair, and he whacked him in the back of the throat, or the back of the neck. This meant that Max wasn't able to continue, and he was taken away, leaving Adam Cole all by himself. And this is where we can go super nerd and start speculating. One, maybe Adam Cole was like, well, I can't believe you blessed me, my friend, and that's why he turned on him. Or two, maybe Max was lying, and he's the asshole. And do we know? No. It was really good as well, because all of a sudden Adam went, oh yes, I am a really good wrestler, and he held his own against the Dark Order, until they grabbed him, threw him into the ring post. That'll do it. I enjoyed this muchly though, because Evil Uno was out with these guys too, and every single one just had such an edge about them, not Adam Copeland. And Excalibur also did a great job on commentary. I was like, wow, these guys are like mega dicks now. What the flub happened? It's also when Reynolds and Silver went combo crazy, and I started to ponder to myself, is there any other tag team that is this good at double moves? Oh, I think there is. Eventually, Reynolds got bored of all this, though, and he was like, man, I'm just going to waffle Adam Cole with the championship, which, of course, is when MJF came back to a hero's welcome. And I stood up and went, see, wrestling doesn't have to be hard. Then I sat down again because it's just a really weird thing to do. He also got the hot tag, so I can only presume that backstage he was running his hand under warm water. And all he really did here was eye pokes and took both their heads and smashed them together. You could do this on a British holiday camp show and get the same reaction that you did in Chicago. Once again, sums up sports entertainment. Everybody in attendance then went crazy because MJF did hit the kangaroo kick, which is the silliest and best move of all time. When he said, Adam Cole, I loved you, and Adam Cole said, I love you too, they hit the double clothesline and they got the 3. I'm sorry, I just think this thing is so damn fun. It does make me feel warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. Never stop it. Giving it a laugh. Although amazingly, 8 seconds later, it got even better still. But Samoa Joe's music hit, because he was like, I'm not wasting any more time here. And when he saw MJF, he shoulder checked him. Now, once again, this was good for 2 reasons. One, because I do believe we're setting up Samoa Joe versus MJF, which I need more than oxygen. And 2, it was a callback to something that happened in NXT a long ass time ago. I love being a geek. Friedman then decided he was going to get in Joe's face, and Adam Cole was like, don't do that with him. That would be really dumb. He ignored him, and he went straight into the choke, which made me laugh. But essentially, this turned into a mega brawl as Samoa Joe smirked the whole time. And I ain't kidding you, I've had dreams worse than this. Look. No, mummy, I don't want to live in the zoo. So everybody absolutely smashed it here. From the match to Adam Cole to MJF to Samoa Joe. And look how excited I am about this potential feud. I am taking my finger of power, and even though this segment only lasted about 2 minutes, I'm giving it up. Because I didn't know I needed this, but now I realize I absolutely do. And then yeah, incredibly, we got our first of 2 big men slapping man meat matches. So this may very well be the best pay-per-view of all time. But it was Joe facing Shane Taylor, and as I have been saying on other ups and downs, I was just so pleased for Shane. Look, I totally understand the criticism. If you want to go, well, it's more of a Ring of Honor match, we shouldn't have it on All Out. Yeah, that makes sense. But from the human side, Shane Taylor has been killing it for ages, and I just like to see good things happen to good people, and these two, they just brought it, and they kicked each other's ass. Taylor also took out Samoa Joe with a lariat. When the hell do you ever see that? But that's when Samoa came back with an enziguri. So I was going through my wrestling rule book going, well, this doesn't make any sense at all. We then got some one kick outs, and look, when a crowd goes this crazy, it does mean you've done something right. When Samoa Joe was like, I forgot, I am Samoa Joe, and he just started to murk this guy. He really is the best. He also tried to choke him, but obviously Shane didn't want to die, so he came back with this like Tower of London stunner and a splash for a 1-2 ooh. But very sadly, all I think that did was piss Samoa Joe off. Because he then got back with a lariat when they did tee off against each other, when Samoa was like, man, I just want to go backstage now. He locked in the Kikina clutch, and very sadly, Shane Taylor had to tap out. So this did not outstay its welcome. Once again, it was just big men slapping man meat, and I always want to see big men slapping man meat. Didn't need to do it twice, but I did. And it was exactly the same for Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin. The TNT title was also on the line, and we had Christian Cage in one corner and Nick Wayne in the other corner. And Christian must have been totally baffled here. Like, if he had an out-of-body experience, he would have gone, well, 1, I'm friends with a dinosaur, and 2, I thought I was the TNT champion. Why aren't I in the match? This was so well placed too, because it does have so much story, and I cannot tell you a lie. Well, I can, I have wonderful hair. I was genuinely surprised by the ending. I didn't see it coming. Because I was absolutely convinced that Darby was going to win, but he didn't. But actually, when you do sit down and think about this, of course he didn't. He was taking on a dinosaur. How many people have ever pinned a T-Rex? I tell you, 0. We also let the prehistoric creature just be a monster here, because he was throwing Alan around like he was a child. And as always, in your real life, do not throw around children. Luchasaurus also swung Darby into Simba the Still Steps, which is horrible, which is when Cage was basically shouting, finish him, finish him. I was like, I didn't realize it. He's Mortal Kombat. It got even worse because the dino then trapped Alan under these steps and he started walking on them. And I don't know whether Darby was selling or not, but he was screaming out in pain. I was like, maybe we should stop this match. It's getting a little bit freaky-deaky. Alan actually did have a plan though, which was like, I'm gonna cross-body you. And he hit him and he just fell to the floor. And I was like, Darby, what were you thinking? Dinosaurs have been around for millions of years. And have you ever seen one been successfully cross-bodied? No, you have not. It didn't even happen in Jurassic Park. Finally, Darby started doing these insane dives. They do just get better and better. I don't know how he does them. And when Luchasaurus went to break his back with a Brack Baker, he turned that into a crucifix bomb. I was like, yeah, that's good stuff. We then switched gears again because Darby went for the coffin drop and Luchasaurus just grabbed him and gave him the German suplex. And man, it landed direct auf dem Kopf. Christian was then shouting at Nick Wayne, you got to throw in the towel, man. You got to throw in the towel, which he said he was going to do. When Alan heard all this, turned his attention to Cage and he took him out with a dive. And that's what you would do. We then did have a little bit of a wibble wobble with a code red because it looked like Luchasaurus didn't kick out, but maybe he did kick out, but nobody knows. But look, you're allowed to make mistakes, especially because this was about to escalate. And that rhymes, which means it's true. Because Christian all of a sudden went absolutely bonkers, just smashing the ship out of Nick Wayne, when he said to Darby Allin, look, unless you stop being an absolute goober, I'm going to murder him with a concerto. And I was like, right, bring down the crime counter. That goes up by 1. Do you know what that's called? Blackmail. That's illegal. It totally screwed Darby as well because he didn't know what to do and he was basically Batman in Batman Forever. Well, he wants to be able to save Robin, but he wants to be able to save Chase Meridian too. Although this was a lot better than that because that was rubbish. It did mean that Luchasaurus grabbed this guy and he hit about 92 tombstones. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that before, when he finished him off with a lariat to the back of the head and he got the 3. And again, I was totally stunned, but also secretly happy. I love Luchasaurus. It was nice to see him get the W. Christian also went more crazy after this because he was just going to finish everybody off with chairs. when the entire locker room emptied. I mean, we had Sean Dean, and a quick shout out to him and his wife for just being lovely people. Sean Spears was here too, my once almost tag team partner. Charlie Bravo, Ethan Page, Action Andretti, and more. And they basically ran off the bad guys, as Christian Cage and Luchasaurus were like villains, because they were like, ha 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 ha, we did it. So this just ruled, and it was actually better than I was expecting, because the finish did surprise me. And by this point, you already know, All Out was a flubbing fantastic pay-per-view. Give it up. Although I'm not sure anything was as good as what followed. I mean, my word. Because not only did we have Miro versus Powerhouse Will Hobbs, and I had both these guys, and it was big men slapping man meat round 2. But Chicago had decided, oh yeah, it is the big men, and they are slapping man meat. So they just started to chant things like meat and variations of the word meat. So somewhere, I bet Sean Stasiak was like, oh, I better go back to work. They just delivered as well. And if there was one word I would use to describe this whole pay-per-view, it was just keeping things simple. Because Miro kicked the crap out of Hobbs. So Hobbs turned around and he kicked the crap out of Miro. Then they lariated each other for a while, but neither of them went down. And then one would go down. So that guy would get up, he'd smack the other one, and that person would go down. I mean, it was truly, truly brilliant. It also shocked us a little bit because at one point Hobbs hit a belly-to-belly suplex, and on someone like Miro that is very impressive, whereas Miro was doing somersault sentons. I was like, where did this come from? He also hurled William into Barry Barricade, so thank goodness he's already gone to the Great Guardrail in the sky, because otherwise he had a terrible evening. And do you know how Powerhouse responded to this? He just slapped him. Made me laugh. It just continued as you'd want as well, because it was just go, 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 slap, 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 meat, meat, meat. When all of a sudden Miro was like, well, I'm going to get him in the game over submission. But Powerhouse lived up to his name. He powered out, he hit him with the spine buster, and Miro kicked out at 2. Honestly, this place went nuts. He then made a massive error though, because he was like, I'm going to show you, you damn fool, and I'm going to apply your own submission on you, which is the ultimate insult in wrestling. But no wrestler wants to feel that way. So it was Miro that actually came back and he busted the spine, he applied the game over submission, and Powerhouse Hobbs had to tap out. This was so damn entertaining, it was so damn fun, and it was so damn enjoyable. Nobody lost here. It was just an absolute hoot. They deserve all the round of applauses. Clearly AEW thought they needed some bells and whistles too, and my word, I'm glad they did this. Because even though they shook hands afterwards, Hobbs just beat the crap out of Miro when some random music started to play, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it's Doink the Clown. Now, it wasn't Doink the Clown, because it wasn't do-do-do-do-do-do-do, but it was actually better, because it was CJ Perry, the former Lana, and the real-life wife of Miro, who he has been talking about in all of his promos. Honestly, this is long overdue. She also had the worst plan ever, because she got a chair, and she smacked Hobbs right on the back. He just turned around like, what the flub are you doing? But of course, by this point, Miro was back, so he smacked Powerhouse, got him in the ring. When he looked at his wife, look, in terms of the story, I don't think he knew she was going to be here. He was really perturbed. And do not forget that these two are great together, and even when they were in WWE, and WWE was making them do dumb stuff, they still made it work. So I am super excited about this. I think it will help Miro no end, I think it will help Lana, CJ Perry no end, it will help the story no end, and I'm very excited about it. Honestly, this was absolutely terrific. Massive thumbs up. And I'm giving it an up. It was after this that I did feel a little bit sorry for Ruby Soho and Kris Statlander, who came out for their TBS title match, because no matter who followed that absolute war, they were going to struggle. And do you know what these two professional wrestlers did? They brought it, and there was no need to worry at all. And I suppose the only issue is that given the championship was on the line, in no world or no reality did I think Soho was going to win. And that's not because Ruby doesn't deserve it, but in terms of where we were, it would be mad to take it off Kris. Surprise, surprise, we didn't. What we did do, though, is litter this with angles, which I thought was really smart. And I also swear, during Statlander's entrance, she did the blue steel pose. I may be totally wrong, but if she did, she should definitely do it again. Kris then began this by kneeing Ruby right in the face when she threw her into Barry Barricade. I was like, man, hasn't he suffered enough? You've already finished him off. Why can't he have one night off? Saraya was also out with Ruby, so she kept casting distraction, which did work, because eventually Ruby did take Statlander down, and she just started to ground and pound her. But this is when Statlander was like, well, I don't really like this. She got back to her feet and hit a fisherman driver for a 2. Ooh. She then went for the gory special, but Soho reversed that into the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. But then they got into a battle off the surprise roll-ups. Look, I can't help it. I love it when wrestlers do this, because don't pretend that they don't know they do. Eventually they both gave up, so they both went to give each other a crossbody, which meant they were both down. And this is when we were about to get shenanigans. Even though the reversals started to flow like a fine wine, as if we were at some posh soiree, all of a sudden Ruby Soho was hitting DDTs and poison ranas for another near fall. When Kris Statlander returned with the least devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the Blue Thunder one. And did it work? No, of course it didn't. We then got the best part of the match, because not only did Ruby hit No Future, but she hit Destination Unknown, and somehow Kris Statlander still kicked out, which is when Saraya was like, right, that's it, I'm done with this, look what I've got, da-da-da-da, and it was the spray paint. However, from here, Toni Storm, the greatest new character in all of professional wrestling, appeared from under the ring. She just started running around, and she just took the spray paint can from Ruby Soho. Soho's face here was so good. She's like, what the hell are you doing? It baffled her so much she turned around and she got hit with the Sunday Night Fever, which allowed Kris Statlander to get the 1, 2, 3. And this is all good in my book, even though I never wrote one. Because, yes, Kris Statlander is still the champion, which is important, and now the Outcasts are slowly falling apart, which is what we should be doing. They've served their purpose. So right now I'm going to try and manifest Kris Statlander versus Athena for the TBS Championship, because that would rule. But honestly, great stuff. Up. Which is when Bryan Danielson, who still has a gammy arm, came to the ring to the final countdown, so I was warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum, and once again laid some evidence that he very may well be the greatest wrestler ever. There's also a strap match against Ricky Starks, and this guy needs his flowers too, because I can only imagine he found out about this match in the last 24 hours, and he put in the performance of a lifetime. So much so, in the post-press conference, Bryan was like, well, I tell you how I did that with a broken limb. It's because Ricky carried me through it. So it's another round of applause, and given this new direction for the character, rules, it's time to push it. Ricky Steamboat was also on commentary. I tell you, he's just so good. He has so much passion. Although Starks disagreed, because before the bell even rang, he took this damn strap, and I tell you, like Jim Ross used to say, he whipped him like a government mule. It busted open Bryan instantly, so I was freaking out like, oh man, can we not protect this guy? When referee Aubrey Edwards went, right, ring the bell. He didn't care at all. It's like, well, it's your fault you're bleeding, Bryan, and now you've got to deal with it. Starks then did just ruin this guy. I mean, he was choking him and dragging him around the place, and every single time Danielson tried to get back into it, he just got taken down again. Because once again, I am a massive nerd. I'm like, man, what if they do some kind of squash match? But they didn't. By this stage, Bryan was also just a crimson mess, so I bet backstage John Moxley was like, oh man, I love it so much. But it really fired him up, because he then took the strap, he put Ricky Starks in the Tree of Woe position, and he was just whamming on this guy. And if all of a sudden he had gone, oh, I forgot that wrestling is meant to be predetermined, I'd be like, yeah, Bryan, yeah, you did. I mean, the noise was so loud I opened my window and I could hear it over here in the UK, when I realised, no, wait, that's still just the sound coming from my speakers, because that's not a thing. When Starks actually made a mistake, he just went and started shouting at Ricky Steamboat, because once again, just think he's so mad. He's like, man, why have you got to be Ricky? I'm Ricky. There can only be one Ricky. He really shouldn't have done this, though, because Danielson snuck up behind him and threw him into the ring post. And then, yeah, Ricky Starks was bleeding too. Why is there so much blood? Nigel McGuinness was so good on commentary too, because he was acting like, man, we may need to stop this, because I think Bryan Danielson is out of control. And at that very moment, Starks came flying out the corner with this lariat, and he just killed him. And I was like, nice. I don't think it's over yet. It actually worked, because the American Dragon then came back with the stiffest kicks you've ever seen in your life, when finally Big Bill was here. And I was like, biggest of Bill, where have you been? Your friend is in trouble. Incredibly, it was basically Ricky Steamboat that stopped him. Though, of course, Bryan Danielson was then like, whoa, 2023 wrestling, and he took everybody out with a dive. And then the near fall that Starks hit off a spear right after, honestly, I genuinely didn't know who was going to win. We then did reverse this because Ricky kicked out of the running knee, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely stupid. When all of a sudden Bryan was back with just the craziest kicks you have ever seen. I mean, these two really work well together. It knocked Mr. Absolute really silly though, which means he did go to the floor, which is when Bryan Danielson applied the label lock, but he took this strap and he was basically choking Ricky Starks while also putting it in his mouth, and Rick had no choice. He was gonna die, but would he tap out? No, he would not. So instead, he passed out. Very sadly for him, it did mean that he lost. Who even cares though, because this was yet another match where sure we had a winner and a loser on paper, but everybody benefited because they just put in such a good damn performance. Now, I don't know what is next for Bryan Danielson, but I can't wait, and I cannot wait to see what Ricky Starks does. He has found his momentum again. You know what? I know I keep giving out round of applauses. What does it even mean? but I'm doing it again. Look like some kind of seal, one of those weird little soldier toy things. Point is, up. When it was time to have some fun, and I checked, I like fun. But it was Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta taking on Eddie Kingston and Shibata. This is one of those matches where I kind of just start looking around the place, thinking to myself, how has 2023 wrestling brought us this? I never had it on my bingo card, which is because I don't play bingo. Kingston also had a t-shirt on that said Claudio sucks eggs, which was both an excellent piece of clothing and of course a shout out to Terry Funk. And essentially what we did here is we continue to tease that eventually Claudio is going to whip Eddie's ass and Eddie is going to whip Claudio's ass. But before that, all the other guys will go at it, including Claudio and Shibata. I don't know why I was so excited about this, but I was right to be so. They just whooped each other's ass. And Claudio did get PK'd right in the head here, which is when Eddie tagged in. And because Castagnoli is a wonderful heel, he went, oh no, and he tagged in Wheeler Yuta instead. And poor Wheels. He got absolutely spanked in this match. I should not have said spanked. He really does need a big hug though. This is when Eddie and Claudio did get into it on the outside. But Yuta saw this and I think he thought, you know what, I deserve some revenge. So he just dove onto Eddie Kingston when Castagnoli grabbed him and threw him into Barricade. We've talked about it and I'm doing it again. It did mean that Shibata got the hot tag, which made me laugh because he did that running dropkick in the corner and just slammed into Castagnoli. I was a bit like, bro, it's a good thing that you don't have hair, otherwise he would have knocked it off. He also then decided to choke Claudio because there was so much attempted murder on this show, and there were so many funny bits, because Shibata then saw Wheeler Yuta and went, man, screw you. He just hit him with the back fist. Once again, I was like, man, can somebody please send some heart emojis for Wheeler Yuta? Claudio then did come back, but this is when Shibata started no-selling his shot. I was like, this dude has the greatest gimmick ever. He is basically Superman. Eddie then went to throw some bones. Of course, he went after Wheels and just smashed him right in the face, which is when Castagnoli and Shibata were just hitting each other with uppercuts. I just stared into the distance during this, and I just wanted to check that it was real. So I was slapping myself and giving myself some pinches. I was like, man, I really shouldn't be doing this because it's a strange way to live your life. This is when we did get to Eddie Kingston versus Claudio, and it was so damn good, especially when Castagnoli hit the neutralizer, but Ed kicked out of two. Eddie then fired back with a Northern Lights bomb, but Claudio kicked out of that when Wheeler was like, right, this time I'm definitely going to help the BCC. He got punched right in the face. He is becoming my new favourite wrestler. It was even better because he then stumbled back into Shibata, who was on the apron, and he started choking him. But actually, this basically served as a distraction, because Claudio got back to his feet, he whammed Kingston with the cigar uppercut, and because Shibata was too busy trying to kill a man, Claudio got the 1, 2, 3, and yeah, he basically, but not really, beat Eddie Kingston. Now, of course, this was super smart because now we can do the singles match and Kingston can win that and become the Ring of Honor World Champion, which will be absolutely fantastic. But once again, they came, they saw, they brought it, and they made this one of the best damn pay-per-views AEW has ever done. And in case you need more evidence for that, it was then Takeshita versus Omega. And this is all I have for you. Horse noises. Almost instantly, Takeshita dropped Kenneth on his head as well, and I was like, oh man, here we go. But it doesn't matter, because they were on the outside, Kenny hit the "you can't escape," and then they just started to unload on each other. That sounded worse than I meant it to. These two were on one as well, because they went back to the outside, and Takeshita was slamming Omega with brainbusters on the floor. And then there were chairs, and Don Callis was getting involved with the chairs, and people were being thrown into the chairs. When they went back into the squared circle, and Takeshita hit the least devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the Blue Thunder Bomb. Did it work? Of course it didn't. In fact, it worked even less because Kenny was able to hit the Terminator dive when he must have gone into his move book and gone, I'm gonna do all of them. Because we had Snapdragons, knee strikes, poison ranas. I mean, he is so disgustingly good, and I mean this, I'm getting on my soapbox, he still doesn't get the credit he deserves. They were then both flipping out of German suplexes like that's normal when Takeshita came in with a knee, so Kenny came back with a V-trigger, and when he was going for the one-winged angel, somehow Takeshita turned that into a crunchy 1-2 kick out, and by this point I was like, man, I'm plugged in. Kenny then started doing that thing when he was out on his feet like, man, I can't go on. And he's so damn good at this, I buy it every time. When he came up with a plan, he looked at Tina the Turnbuckle and he was like, I wonder what happens if I go up there and hit the one-winged angel, and I started freaking out. And then I stopped freaking out because Takeshita reversed this and he hit an avalanche Blue Thunder Bomb. And do you think this won the match? No. Because even from that point, it is still the least devastating move in all of sports entertainment, and it failed. The ref was then so damn distracted, and I don't blame him because this was chaos, Don Callis actually took the screwdriver and he went to stab Kenny right in the brain. So bring it back. It's the crime counter. It goes up by 1. This is self-explanatory. I then started cracking up because even these two went for the most devastating move in all sports entertainment battle, when all of a sudden Takeshita reversed that into the power knee driver, whatever the hell it's called, 1-2 kick out. Just go and listen to the fans. I think they may have hooked him. Takeshita too was trying to use the driver of screws, but thankfully Kenny got rid of that. But in that moment, not only did Kenneth get cracked right in the skull, but Takeshita looked at him and he gave him yet another running knee and he pinned him and got the 3. And this was genuinely in my face. I couldn't believe it. Commentary once again did a fantastic job because they were like, wait a minute, Takeshita beat him last week and he beat him again. And fair play to Kenny Omega. He has gone out of his way to make this guy a star. And it was a star-making performance. Like, this match was so damn good and they made it look so damn effortless. And given that we'll probably have a third encounter and they can likely take it higher, well, I'm a bit scared. Because where the hell does it end? But it is getting it up. When it was party match time next, I love AEW. For it was Bullet Club Gold versus FTR and the Young Bucks, and sure, you can walk around going, oh man, this should have been a TV match. That just means you're spoiled, man. 10 years ago, this just wouldn't have been a random television match. And what is the problem of 8 fantastic wrestlers doing it on pay-per-view? I tell the answer, there is no problem. I mean, it's the equivalent of me saying, well, maybe I can wear a wig and feel better about myself. But I don't have one, so I'm just going to put an octopus on my head instead. It also started with the Guns and Cash Wheeler going at it when, yes, Matt and Nick Jackson were doing their quick tags and the Chicago people booed them. Now, here's the deal. They didn't care. Everyone's making a big mountain out of a molehill with this. You could see that they were having the time of their life. They totally get it. Probably need to stop doing this now because it looks like I'm about to die. Dax Harwood and Jay White then continued their beef from Collision when Juice Robinson got in there, just started punching people in the gut. But it did mean that Jay White was left all alone. So he started chop blocking people when the tag klaxon went off, and we got a big old brawl. We then got a quadruple drop, which is the best variation of a 1980s move I've ever seen, when all the good guys put the bad guys in sharpshooters. Honestly, just sat there and thought to myself, that'll do, pig. That'll do. Dax then got smashed around for a while, so we had to make the hot tag to Nick Jackson. And as we've said before, if for some reason we decided to rank hot tags, Nick may be number 1. Matt soon got in there to make it even better when all of a sudden Matt Jackson and Dax Harwood did a pile driver onto Colton Gunn together. I was like, oh man, they could be friends. Bullet Club Gold then went for a massive 3-way suplex, but instead they all got hit in the balls because they know what they were doing when we basically got this. Dive, 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 did I dive, 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 dive. I was fine with it. FTR and the Bucks were then combining 450 splashes and power plexes, like you just come up with the best damn video game moveset of your life, when it was Nick and Cash who hit the Shatter Machine, meaning it was Matt and Dax who hit the BTE trigger. So once again, we're just crossing the stream, Ghostbusters. It actually went really bad though because the action spilled to the outside. Colton gave Matt Jackson the famouser. When back in the ring, there was a bunch of blind tags. Jay White noticed this. He hit Cash Wheeler with the Blade Runner and he pinned him. But there was a little bit of secret sauce here too because Nick Jackson zoomed in at the last minute and he wasn't able to break up the pin. So right afterwards, Cash was like, well, why didn't you do it, bro? He was like, I tried to, bro, but I failed. Stop calling me, bro. And look, maybe that is true, but maybe it isn't. And given that Bullet Club Gold were like, well, we did it. Whereas the other 4, well, they kind of fell out again. It really did tick all the boxes though, because you want the BCG to be victorious here, because they are a proper team. And now we can probably go to round 92 or whatever it is between the Young Bucks and FTR. This was very well placed in the card. And once again, I just had a good time. It is getting it up. Which was doubly true for our main event. Orange Cassidy versus John Moxley for the international title. Ooh, delally. I mean, even if they hadn't have brought it, they still had a wonderful story to rely on here. Because Orange Cassidy has just defended it, to the point he's basically a dead man, but he refuses to give up the ghost. That was his strategy here too, because the bell rang and he just ran at John Moxley trying to finish him off. This didn't work at all because Max grabbed him, started to throw him around the place. At one point too, he was literally stomping on his face. So I just have a quick PSA for you. If you have some fruit on home, don't stomp on it, it will bruise and go bad. In an act of desperation, Cassidy was still able to hit the Stun Dog Millionaire. But this is when Jonathan grabbed him and hurled him into the ring post, and once again, he was bleeding. So, man, there's a lot of red stuff on this show, but in terms of this match, flubbed me sideways, did it add to the emotion. I also started calling the newspapers, because I was like, I've never seen an orange bleed before, when Moxley started to bite at his face. Now, usually when John Boy does this, I'm like, man, that's disgusting. But this made perfect sense. He was clearly hungry, here was some fruit, why wouldn't he eat it? It then got really bad because he did smash Cassidy with a power driver. This is what I noticed, that some of Orange Cassidy's blood was on his mouth. Can't lie, it was a little bit disgusting. John really was something special on this night as well, because even for him, he was really intense. And when he started mocking Orange by doing the little kicks, it was a bit like a serial killer doing a song and dance. You're like, pretend to enjoy it, please don't kill me. He really shouldn't have done this because Cassidy then bit him back because turnaround is fair play. But as soon as he went for the orange punch, Moxley ducked this and he just started ragging on again. The reason we do love this guy though is that he never gives up because he's John Cena and he hit the orange punch and that didn't work, and then he hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment and that didn't work either. And of all the matches on this card, this is the one where I was like, man, I actually don't know who's going to win, so it meant I bought in twice as much. It pissed off Moxley no end, who then decided, well, now I'm going to apply every single submission I do know. But Orange fought out of this and he drop kicked Mox into Sim with the steel steps. And I'll give you 3 guesses as to what happened. And your multiple choice answers are John Moxley bled, John Moxley bled a lot, John Moxley bled for the rest of the match. The answer is all of them. He then just went nuts with the punches, but he went too far because the last one got reversed into a cutter because it is 2023 wrestling when John Moxley hit him with the Death Rider and Cassidy kicked out. I don't even care, man. I leapt out of my seat because I believed in the Orange. It then got even better somehow because Orange Cassidy started doing his little kicks, but he just started to get more intense and more intense and more aggressive. So that is 5 stars, 6.25 stars in the Tokyo Dome. And when he finally went to do something else to Mox, he got smashed with a lariat. And do you know what Orange Cassidy did? He no-sold it, he stood right back up, and I was just like, yes, never eat apples again. Sadly, by this point, he was just an absolute mess, and he used his last ounce of energy to stand up and flip Moxley off, which was not a good idea. John then decided to end this for good. Because it meant that Moxley did put him out of his misery with his ridiculous Death Rider and he got the 1, 2, 3. But as soon as the BCC had come down to go, oh, well done, John, and they left, we allowed Orange Cassidy to stand in this ring as everybody in Chicago cheered him. I don't even care, man. This was a moment. So we should really use this to move Cassidy up to the next level, whatever that means. And we have to praise John Moxley because he is so damn good and one of the best in the world, but so is Orange Cassidy. This match was fantastic. It was worthy of the main event. You have to go and see it. Of course, we do have a brand new international champion, but it rocked my world so much, it doesn't just get an up, it gets the golden up. And to be totally honest with you as well, when it comes to the show overall, I'm giving it a golden up. I mean, maybe it's because we came in with lesser expectations, but AEW delivered on a level that I just wasn't ready for. And look at me, I'm still a rocking and a rolling. So thank you very much, professional wrestling. I love thee. Now, of course, please do click the video on the screen, which will be for ups and downs and collision. You can see what I thought about all of that mess. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Go to whatculture.com. We'll keep you up to date with everything. Follow us on social media. But more importantly, let's all take a bit of a rest from professional wrestling, then wake up tomorrow and do it all again.